Everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition, and today we are going to discuss why people stay in human realities and why we stayed in the human realities. And this becomes very apparent when you start to leave human realities behind and you start going through your awakening, you start going through your ascension, and you want other people to come too. And as you go through your process, it becomes more and more clear the people who aren't coming with you. You know, it's not their time yet. They're not supposed to be there yet. And you look at the corruption and you can start to see so many distortions in the human reality, so many limiting beliefs, so many constrictions, so many roadblocks. You know, they're not happy realities. A lot of times we will compare them to the hell dimensions, you know, and you would compare your higher dimensional realities to heaven dimensions. And that's really why when we get to these places, it can feel complex. You know, it doesn't, sometimes you don't make any sense. Why don't you want this too? And a big proponent of that is that as long as the human realities still work for someone, they're not going to leave them. And so we kind of have, to me, there's like two tracks here. You have the people who were supposed to leave early. So, you know, a lot of us could start to pave the way for the next generation of people who are going to be leaving human realities. So you either had human realities that worked for you until all of a sudden they just completely stopped working for you. And that can be like a very massive awakening, you know, a sudden awakening, spontaneous awakening, where all of a sudden nothing worked. Everything had worked and nothing worked. You know, finances go belly up, you know, relationships go belly up, you know, there's nothing working anymore. Or there's kind of a parallel kind of track to that, or maybe an offshoot of that one where they all worked, but there's still something not quite right. Some are more harsher than others when they stop working, and sometimes they're still working, but something still feels off. And you might start dabbing your toe in a little bit of spirituality type of stuff, because that is the gateway for a lot of us to leave. It's not the entire journey, but going through spirituality, some type of spiritual awakening, getting into some energetic principles, astrology, numerology. Some people get into human design. They get into energy, Reiki. I mean, that's the path I went on. There's a lot of different paths to go on to get out. To begin to start pulling yourself out and realizing, yeah, this whole reality doesn't make any sense. The thing about these realities is that we are not going to leave till they don't work, till there's some kind of chinks in the system. And then we have the other side of us. So that's whole one group over there. I kind of put those people who were in that places, they worked until obviously they didn't work, or they were still kind of working, but something was missing. So some of those are more, a little bit easier outs in a sense, but they're still not, even in those realities, until it all starts completely not working, and you might be gradually getting into other stuff, but until everything stops working, you're not going to be willing to really leave, because it's all we know. And if it's still working for you, why would you leave? It's like if you're at a company, no matter how corrupt the company is, if you don't realize they're corrupt, and at that point we don't realize they're corrupt, and you're making lots of money, you know, you're everything seems to be going your way there, why would you walk out of there? You can watch all these other people leave, but if it's still working for you, why would you walk out? You're not going to. And that's why people stay. And that's why a lot of the collectives have stayed for so long, because it still works for them. And then you have, to me, a lot of the earlier, people who were going earlier, you know, a lot of what we call people who came through prior to 2012, people who were coming in 2010 to 2020, that were going through their awakening and their ascension, the pre-waivers, the pre-first waivers, then the actual first waivers, who were kind of here to lay the groundwork for all the other collectives coming through, putting on information, explaining, you know, this is what's going on. This is why everything starts to fall apart. Assisting people so when they got to these places, they wouldn't be wondering what the fuck is going on. Now, for a lot of us, I felt like, for me, it never quite worked. And when I say it never quite worked, nothing really ever worked in human realities for me. I'm not saying it was a terrible experience, but it never felt like anything really clicked. You know, all the jobs I had, yeah, they were fine, but nothing ever really clicked as far as all of a sudden being at a company where I felt like I'm really enjoying this work. This is a lot of fun. I really want to stay here. Everything was very short-lived as far as that kind of stuff went. Relationships were sort of the same way. Nothing seemed to really work, and so when it stopped working, it was such a drastically just now nothing works at all because it had never really been working in the first place. So that to me is another track that a lot of people can be on. But I feel like a lot of those people were kind of in the first couple waves that came through. Or if you're, and even the second wave now that's going on, you're still kind of going to be in one of the two tracks. It's either everything stopped working that had been working, or nothing really ever works for you. And you're kind of in these realities like, yeah, it's okay, but I haven't got massive wealth. I haven't gotten a really extremely happy relationship. I haven't gotten massive fame, massive success, in anything I've really done. It's all been fine, but nothing has been spectacular. There's nothing I feel like I'm really leaving behind. So when we get to a lot of people will look at it and go, how are they still playing in this? It's because it still works for you. And if it still works for you, you're not motivated to leave. When you see other people in these realities, as long as these realities work for them, they're not going to walk out of them because it's not their time yet. When it's their time, they'll stop working. Things will start to go sideways. Things won't be as rosy as they have appeared to be. But as long as they feel rosy, then you're going to stay. There was a great scene in the first Matrix movie when the guy who had left was like, hey, just give me the pill to go back in, but give me everything I want. Let me make that corrupt, fake life as absolutely happy as I can make it. Everything is wonderful. And then I wouldn't mind doing it again. Because being on the other side, going through your ascension, different parts of your ascension, can be rough. It's the hardest thing you're ever going to do, and it's not going to be easy. And if people are telling you it's easy, they're just not at the hard parts yet. They're still in the, making a choice to, I don't want this reality anymore, talking about human realities, but not really creating your new realities yet. You're kind of in the middle where I made a decision, but I made a choice, but I didn't really do anything after that. Until we get to the, I'm now going to do something, I'm going to stop aligning to these systems, I'm going to stop doing all these things to align to these timelines. Technically, I made a choice, but I didn't do anything with it. I didn't really leave anything behind. I just said, yeah, I don't agree with this anymore, but I'm still participating in it. Because there's still something there that's working. As long as there's anything there that's working, you're not going to want to walk away. And that's why some of the awakenings can be so abrupt. Some of the awakenings can be so rough. Because it has to shake us out of this is not working anymore. But we can't really look at the people where it's still working and say, well, you need to get out too. They would have no reason to get out. There's no call for them to get out. That's why when a lot of people talk about what drove them, what their awakening was, or what pushed them farther into their ascension process, a lot of those things are not rosy things, because if they were, they would have stayed. We go through a lot of kind of wanting to leave, but then leaving is a totally different thing. I did a couple videos on cancel culture where that's just to push people out. Where everything was so, if you were big enough to get canceled, everything was working for you in that reality, in the human realities, and all of a sudden it's like, no, it's your time to leave now. So we don't even have time to slow you out of here. We're just going to push you out. Where now nothing is going to work for you here anymore. You're going to kind of be on your own. So when I look at certain collectives and certain, people I know that are still very ingrained in the human realities, and there's this part of me that says, even though it's so distorted, you start to understand, you start to see that you put more kindness on it. You understand why they're still there. You understand why they haven't left it. You understand why they feel the way they feel, because for them, these realities still work for them. These are not realities where they feel the need to go create something else. We can say no to one reality, but we have to go create another one. And to give us that push to do that, to stop believing in human realities and go create from our highest aspects, those are two separate things. Believing you don't want to be in it and then going to create something new. Those are two different sides of the coin also, that you'll see a lot of people will waver on. As long as any aspect of human realities work for you, you're not going to want to leave them. So I think a lot of people will see content on awakening, content on ascension, content on any type of content that's raising your consciousness, and That can be anything. You know, I did a video the other day on, you know, the boys or Gen Z or, you know, any of that stuff can still be an awakening to a certain extent. It can still remind you of Atlantean timelines when you see the corruption of power. You can see that playing out in our collectives now. But until you get to the point where it doesn't work, you're not going to want to go. So for all of us who are in the phase where nothing ever worked, it feels maybe a little bit easier because you're like, well, you know, nothing was really ever working over there. And I think there's a lot that fall into that camp where, yeah, it was okay, but I can't say anything ever really, really worked. And you get this feeling where you see other people where everything's working, and you can feel that jealousy come in, even in your, especially in your human timelines, even sometimes in your ascension awakening timelines, you'll still be clearing jealousy, and you'll see other people that it feels like it's easier for them, or it's just so much, it's so much, the path is so much clearer for them for whatever reason. Everything seems easier, and a lot of that's just a perception of looking at someone else and going, yeah, that looks easier than what I'm doing. But you're also not walking in that person's path exactly to know, is it really easy, or are they just, you know, avoiding? Are they just not dealing with the stuff they need to align or deal with, so it still looks easy for them because they really haven't had to rearrange anything yet? There's a lot of different timelines going on. A lot of different people are in a lot of different places. But when you're trying to look at someone and get them to go with you, and it's not their time yet, until it's their time, stuff will work to some extent for them. It has to, you know, because if not, and we've talked about this before, you know, if you have everyone going through the same thing at the same time all across the planet, these systems, even the human corrupt systems, are they the highest of the highest timeline? No. Are they higher than the timeline we were in before? Yes. You know, some of these systems might support someone. You know, someone who's going through their awakening and ascension and wants to focus on something else. They might be on unemployment. So that's technically being supported by a human system. But in that instance, for that amount of time, it's aligned until that's now that's no longer highest aligning, where now it's the next thing. So there's so many increments and phases, and when you get to actually leaving, when it's working for someone, they're not going to want to. So you're going to be kind of trying to pull someone out of something they don't want to be pulled out of. They're perfectly happy with where they are because everything is working. Now, if you really go in depth to that human programming, of course, nothing's really working. Their perception of what humans believe in is working, right? The money is fine. The relationship seems fine. The kids are fine. The health right now is fine. So if you look at just the human values, the human beliefs on what happy is, and you have to remember that too, when we're kind of dissecting the different collectives and dissecting where we are and where other people are in our life, it's, you know, everyone's got their own belief on what is happy. Human happy is not going to be higher aligned, higher soul happy. You know, it's human happy is not peace. It's not bliss. It's not joy. But it's learning to work within that system and having some level of success in it, even though the system is corrupt. So I could look back at the most successful person in human reality and know they're really not experiencing true soul happiness. But in that moment, that's all they know. They haven't experienced soul happiness. They haven't experienced the soul joy yet. Until they get to those phases and compare the feelings, they don't know. You know, you don't know what you don't know. Well, or you don't know what you don't remember yet. So it's important to remember when we're in these places to just remember that. You know, don't be sad when other people, you know, it might trigger sadness, but remember, it's not their time yet. If it's still working for them, they're not going to want to leave. They're not going to want to hear what you got to say about that stuff, you know, because it still works for them. If it works for you, you're not going to leave. And if there's any part of it still working for you, look why you don't want to 100% leave. You don't want to 100% walk away from all the human beliefs, all the human realities. Look at where, hey, this still kind of works for me, and I don't want to go yet because there's still something, either A, something is working for me, or B, there's still something I want to get out of it. Something I might be able to make work if I try hard enough. If I take some of this spiritual stuff and plug it in here, maybe I can make this stuff work, which is kind of the big, you know, dangling carrot that our soul will do. It's like, oh yeah, try all this stuff. But it's not going to make any of this shit work. This shit's a sunk cost. But if you want to plug it in there, it's still going to raise your consciousness to get out of it. It's just not the way you think you're going to get out of it. You know, it's kind of like going to be backwards. It's kind of like, You think you're going all in the front door to fix a human reality, and your soul's sneaking you out the back door with all this stuff. It's pulling you out the back door because your consciousness, or pulling you, I guess, up the ceiling, out of the ceiling. It's pulling you up higher with your consciousness to where none of the stuff you thought you were working toward or using this stuff for really is what you're going to use it for anymore. That's not what it's for. So, okay, hopefully that will shed some light on some of the stuff I've been seeing, some of the frustrations sometimes I have, and I feel like other people probably have them too, when you're in one place and everyone else is still having human realities that work for them. And that also shows you what's going to have to collectively happen across the planet to get mass collectives to leave. It's going to have to all completely stop working. And those are going to be some really harsh, on the magnitude where we're going to need that stuff to happen, and how harsh that can be for so many of the collectives, and the compassion we're all going to need when those things start to happen. I mean, we talk a lot about being, when you're in a higher consciousness, you are kind of detached from the timelines, but you still are compassionate for them. It's still real to them. They don't understand why they're going through that. You might be able to see that. Can we still bring compassion to that? Can we still bring love to that, and love to the communities, love to those people, even though we understand why it's happening? And you can always say, oh yeah, it happens because it's supposed to, or it's on a soul level, that's what was supposed to happen. And that stuff all sounds great, but when you're in the middle of this stuff, you don't want to hear that. When you were in the middle of that stuff, you didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear that. When your whole human life's falling down around you, what you don't want to hear is, oh, it's meant to be. It always happens for the best, or blah, blah, blah. We have to bring more than that. We have to be able to bring the compassion. We have to be able to bring that feeling of someone's soul through us to them, where they can ignite that in them, feel that feeling, bring that energy, bring our energy field, bring our presence to these places so they can feel that and understand that, yeah, this sucks. Yes, we might be able to see why this is happening this way, but it doesn't take away from the people in it and the compassion and the support we need to give those people who are involved in that. Even though we can see a higher reason why it has to go down that way. Because if it doesn't go down that way, you're not going to move. These people aren't going to move until it's a catastrophic wipe out of their human realities. We know that. It doesn't mean when they're in that place, we can't love them and support them through that. So, okay. I think that sums it up. Keep practicing the art of intuition.